I guess I'll start with Hunt. And for anyone who is paying attention, they probably saw that, all our pools have been selling out pretty much instantly. So already our treasury is earning, pretty decent revenue on a monthly basis from that, based on the 15% fee that we're taking from the yield. What I wanted to talk about was the issues with the distribution, because there's been a lot of confusion with that. And I plan on writing up a more detailed article on how it works and how the team costs are determined, because there's a lot of confusion. And I think the confusion is coming from people are assuming that Hunt works similar to any other staking protocol, where tokens are just being minted per block, or if it's something like decentralized exchange, for example, it's collecting trading fees and then just distributing that to users. And Hunt doesn't work that way at all. So everything that you know about staking pretty much does not apply to Hunt. The way that it works is we have to actually mine. And I guess, first of all, the way the yield is going to be determined completely depends on, each product's like internal mechanics. So, for example, with Crabada, the rewards are mined on a 4 hour basis. And so there's no yield to even distribute for at least those 4 hours. Aside from that, because it's not an inflationary contract, it's actually the smart contract pretty much just covers the NFTs, which covers the share of each user, which pool they bought into, which NFT they own. Beyond that, it's everything is just using a bot to actually mine these crabs in the game, collect the yield, and then distribute the users. So that's why there's going to be variation in how people receive their yield. And for example, I see a lot of conversations in the Discord where people are asking each other, like how much they got, or, what time they got their rewards. The rewards are going to vary. And the reason for that is because since it's not a staking contract, it depends on when the bot is initiated to begin with and when the pools are filled. So we don't actually start, the distribution at all until the pools are filled. So as you guys probably saw this week, the pools didn't fill immediately. It took about 12 hours for them to fill. And so, like the first four had closed within a couple hours, and then we had seven pools, and the seventh didn't close until about 12 hours later. And so, like we're not going to start distributing rewards to those pools when they haven't even filled. And I mean, like we're paying real money to create these teams, so it would make no sense for us to start them early, not knowing in advance if the pool is going to fill and if we're actually going to get a return on our investment. So that's why it works the way that it does. The best way to actually, on an individual basis for the user to calculate how the yield is distributed and determined would just be to give it, like 48 hours or so, and then check on a daily basis if they're getting, relative, like, I guess, like relatively an equal amount. But even the yield is going to change because it's all based on probability. And so, what we're doing is creating teams with the highest, like miner's revenge and the highest win rate, but it's still completely contingent on those teams actually winning. And since it's based on, like Crabada's own mechanics, we can't say, like, okay, today you're going to earn 100 TUS, like, and that's going to be the case forever. It could be 100 today, it could be 112 tomorrow. It's going to vary because it's all, determined by Crabada's mechanics. So that's why there's going to be variation. And the best thing to do is actually just calculate it on a daily basis, see how much you've earned. And there's a minimum that you should earn, which is the Google sheet that I sent in Discord, which shows that the daily reward after the 15% fee is it's 2,703. So whatever your share is of that, you should be getting like the very minimum that amount, but it's going to be higher than that once we've implemented the reinforcement bot. So the other thing about Hunt is, so initially we were selling teams that were made up of bulks, and that's because we started creating those teams before they actually announced the faction update. And so prior to the faction update, that's what everyone was doing because it was the most profitable strategy. But since they decided to update the game and change the meta, we also had to update our teams. And now we've all the future pools are going to be upgraded teams. So there's no longer going to be using pure bulk teams. We're going to be using it's going to be Craboid Prime, and the reason for that is you can mine every 3.5 hours as opposed to 4 hours. So you're generating more yield just because you're mining, more times per day. But on top of that, they also have the maximum miner's revenge, which is 40%. So that means they have the highest probability of winning. So that's why we're using that strategy. And all future pools are going to be using that team composition to maximize the yield for the user. So the future pools you're going to see, they're going to be a little bit more expensive because those crabs are more expensive on the market, and then also they generate higher yield. So that's why the pool cost is going to increase alongside it. Um, I guess other things to discuss is so Hunt. We had some unexpected delays. The distribution bot had an issue, and um, basically what happened was, so some users didn't get their rewards for I think 1 or 2 days, and it wasn't that many people. It was probably like I think 20, 30 people didn't get their rewards. And the reason for it is because the distribution bot had failed transactions, and then other users were getting more, and then other users were getting less or nothing. And now that's been completely fixed. It's been running for several days now. It's working perfectly. And so now everyone should be getting the accurate amount of yield. Um, so yeah, the devs basically they fixed the issue. They're using a bulk sender now as well to save on gas, and we shouldn't see that issue happening anymore. What we are going to do for the people who didn't get their funds is after we've completed doing all of this, because it doesn't make sense for us to pause what we're doing and deal with everyone on an individual basis when we have a shit ton of work to do. So once we're have completed all this work, everything's been optimized, everything's working fine, then we'll go back and we'll talk to any individual who, thinks they're missing yield, and then we'll look at their wallet and see if that actually was the case, if it was one of the failed transactions, and then we can just send the difference. um, but yeah, it's going to have to wait until we've completed all this work because it just doesn't make sense to stop and stop development for something like this small, and it's just going to delay us further doing it. um, but yeah, so these were unexpected delays, and it's not a big deal. None of them are like grave issues at all. They're all things that were, like relatively simple to fix. But it did kind of slow things down a bit. And there's just a lot going on right now with CCC Hunt. We're trying to basically adapt this for other projects essentially, and we discussed, for example, how Hunt is essentially like at its core, it's like fractionalized ownership. And what we did with Crabada is like these are assets that are too expensive for people to buy themselves, or it requires a lot of time from the user. And there are people who don't want to commit that time. They just want the passive income, they just want to wake up every day, see that they've made money, and leave it at that. And the difference is pretty small between a user mining the teams themselves or just entering Hunt. So we do think that it's something that's going to be extremely popular. And if people were following the chat, they've seen that people are throwing tens of thousands of dollars in there. There was a guy in the chat who threw in like 100 grand himself. And as he explained, it's not that he doesn't have his own teams, it's that he doesn't want to manage them himself. So I think Hunt, could be pretty attractive for like pretty much every player type or like any investor who wants exposure to Crabada. Um, and then I guess so. I did want to talk about like because this has delayed us quite a bit, and there's a lot that we wanted to do that I think hasn't been mentioned over the past few weeks. For example, Sub-DAOs. There was a proposal if you verified your wallet in the Discord, you would have seen the governance channels, and there was a proposal created by Mer and Beeskin regarding the sub-DAO model and also the treasury allocation. So I recommend people look at that, but that's something we definitely plan on pursuing still, and that we're going to be essentially like delegating, like investment to Briscoe, Mer, Beeskin. So they're going to have, funds from the treasury that they can use to invest into other projects, and help grow our treasury. And there's a lot of projects that we're looking at already. You've seen them already if you're part of the DAO channels. They're publishing the proposals there and discussing, like the potential of these projects. And then the other side of it too is, if people were watching or looking at Zapper, we pretty much doubled our treasury in the past week. And before Hunt launched, we were talking about, the impact it would have on CCC's treasury and the revenue that we would be generating. I think in total right now, the monthly revenue from just the performance fee alone is about 100,000. But then the difference that we make on the pools is going to be generating a lot more than that for the CCC treasury. So as long as this keeps running and we keep selling pools, we're literally looking at like millions of dollars coming into CCC's treasury on a monthly basis. Um, and I guess like that's something that I wanted to cover because I don't think people really understand the implications of Hunt. They're just looking at it as, okay, they created a protocol where we get exposure to Crabada, but they're not really seeing how this is integrated with CCC or why it's beneficial to CCC, and even how to like value something like CCC because of this product. And the way I've been looking at it is, for example, I was looking at GMX, and GMX is, it's for leverage trading, but for their stakers, they're generating about $6 million per month, which is distributed between all stakers. And every time I think about Hunt, and this is just with Crabada alone, but that's the type of revenue that we could be generating for CCC. And that's without trading whatsoever. That's completely independent of what the sub-DAOs are doing, what projects they're investing. That's strictly from Hunt. And, GMX is valued at over $200 million market cap. So in comparison, if that's the type of revenue that we're generating for our treasury and users, you'd imagine that CCC should obviously be worth a lot more than our current market cap, which is like $5.8 million. So for me, it's not even a question. It's all these projects, MCC, Thor, I mean, a lot of them rugged like ETH, which if you look at our first AMAs, I was telling people these projects were going to rug. They don't have anything of value. And so already, in my opinion, CCC, when it comes to farming as a service, nodes as a service, any of that other bullshit, like we're already the best. We're the only ones that actually have a sustainable product, and we're the only ones that are going to be generating that sort of revenue, for the DAO. Um, and I think people are just going to see that in the coming weeks. Like one example is just that we already doubled our treasury. We're already getting regular revenue. So we're already in the lead, in my opinion. But and that's, like I said, that's only with Crabada, and Hunt can be adapted to a bunch of other projects. So if we're going to be getting, for example, millions of dollars from Crabada every month, imagine once we start adapting this to other projects. And so CCC, really is going to be comparable, in my opinion, to like the top DeFi protocols, but it's going to be the first DAO that is actually doing this and sharing it, with their users, and where the users actually have a say in how the DAO is managed. So I think we're getting pretty close to fulfilling our goals, that we've been talking about since the very first AMAs and since the first week of CCC. So I'm pretty excited for Hunt. I think there's a lot of other people who are excited as well. We've been getting a lot of contacts. There was one pretty big YouTuber who DM'd me this week, who said he's interested in doing a video. And we didn't reach out to him at all. He just personally reached out to us. We're talking to a couple VC firms. One of them we reached out to for advice with the Launchpad. Another one has contacted us recently just because they're interested in investing. We got asked to go on Crab Radio, which I think would be good for us to do. but we're going to wait because at the moment we don't really have the capacity to sustain the sort of demand that we were seeing for the hunt pools. And so our worry with marketing right now is basically we want to take a step back and refine everything first and increase our capacity and then move on to marketing, because otherwise we're just going to have, hundreds or thousands of people who are pissed off that they can't even access the project, because we don't have the capacity to do it. So yeah, there's a lot of positive things going on, with podcasts, advising, and partnerships, and we plan on tackling all of that in the near future. But for now, our main priority is just refining Hunt, implementing the reinforcement bot. We fix the distribution, and once all of that is done, then we'll move on to everything such as the sub-DAOs and actually, pushing marketing. So yeah, we already have some things in the works. There's a couple influencers we'll be working with. We hired an agency for guerrilla marketing, and we'll be going forward with the podcast and such. And I guess to kind of wrap it up, on my end, some of the things that we've been discussing, like our original intentions haven't changed at all. So if you were here part of the earlier AMAs where, we discussed the roadmap, for example, building a launchpad, building an educational platform, like that's still all in the works and that's still part of the plan. Some of the new things that we discussed though, where, for example, we want to do a podcast series with other projects. And I've noticed other projects doing this as well. But I think it would actually be a way to help, like CCC holders learn about new projects, but it would also help, bring exposure to whoever we work with, So I think doing these sort of podcasts with, like DeFi or play to earn projects would be really beneficial to our holders, and then also to bringing more eyes onto CCC and Hunt. So that's definitely something we want to do in the future. But yeah, I guess that's everything for now that I have to say. I guess I'll open it up for questions if people want to ask anything. And then, like I said, you can ask questions in the Discord, or you can just request to speak on voice, and I'll add you.
We can expect that to be released.
I have no clue because we haven't even started development for it. We just have, like an outline of how it's going to work, and it's doable, but we have to finish reinforcement first, and then we'll have a meeting and, start to see how long that will take. But like I would expect probably mid to end of March before that's released.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're added. You can speak.
Cool. Sorry, I just had a couple questions just about future pools. I was just wondering. I'm not sure if it's been mentioned already whether you were sort of looking into the treasure ecosystem on Arbitrum.
Into the what?
The treasure ecosystem, like Magic on Arbitrum.
I have no clue what that is. Yeah.
So
I'm not involved with research of any other projects, so that's the delegates would be responsible for that, like Briscoe, and Random Guy would be the ones to talk to regarding play to earn gaming. I'm just way too busy with building this now that I don't have any time to research those sort of things.
no worries, I understand. I'll bring up in the Discord chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Anyone else want to speak? That was the last speaker, so. Oh, and I guess Briscoe said that they do have a proposal coming up on Treasure to answer your question. Someone asked if we're going to be pursuing fractionalized strong nodes. Initially, we had the idea of fractionalizing these nodes, but to be honest, looking at that whole market right now, it seems like it's dying pretty quickly. I've been in strong for a long time, but I haven't added a single dollar to my investment because I've always expected it's going to go to zero at some point. But looking at projects like Thor, for example, yeah, Jesus Christ, it's down 64% for the month. MCC has nodes as well, which I don't think are gonna fucking go anywhere, to be honest. But yeah, so I'm not really sure that we want to spend time fractionalizing them. The reason being is that it takes time, and then I don't think the return is actually going to be worth, like the time we'll be spending on development. So and there's better options on the market with, like um, much longer like lifespan that I think we should be focusing on. But I don't know if it's not too complicated, then like we'll do it. But at the moment, that's not a priority for us. And Crypto Maniac asked if there's a way for old pools to upgrade their teams. We've already mentioned in our articles before that we're going to be upgrading the teams, so there's no reason to be concerned about that at all. All of them are going to be upgraded regardless. Hey, what's up?
Thanks for putting this on again. I guess my main question would be I guess, put it to the community, right? The macro situation in crypto at the moment has led to some pullback at present, but what more can each and every one on this call and in the Discord do to help spread CCC's word? What message do you want from the people, and how can they help to bring attention to the Discord and everything? What more can everyone be doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I forgot to mention, but Terra Ranger and several other people started their own group to do community marketing. And they have a lot of good ideas. They've mentioned some things that we'll be implementing soon, like adding a tip feature on the Discord, for example. But they've also been discussing, doing their own AMA regarding marketing. And we'll be helping to fund all of that as well. I think it's a good idea. For one, because I think really like, key to a project's success isn't really just the team spending money on marketing, but people being involved. And obviously we want to like incentivize that behavior. So they're drawing up their own plans, and then we'll be helping them out however we can, whether that's with money or implementing a new feature and so on. So get in touch with Terra Ranger on the Discord if you want to be part of that. And then regarding the gifts, people are just going to have to wait and see what that's about, but it'll be soon. I'm not releasing any details about our plans. So and yeah, like I mentioned, it's like we're not really in a rush to market. I think there's a lot of people in the Discord who are kind of like panicking and worried about the price and think it's like the end of the world because of Bitcoin dipping and this Ukraine situation. Um, our goal is like we're pretty confident that we have a really good idea. We think that this has the potential to be one of the most successful DAOs in the entire crypto space. I think we have the potential to be one of the best passive income projects. And there's really no one with a comparable idea. Not that there aren't better ideas, but at the moment, I haven't seen anything that I would consider sustainable. Like our competition consists of just Ponzi schemes, and I don't think it's going to be difficult to take them out when people see, the sort of yield that they can get for not even, like, I mean, for example, MCC, you need $10,000 if you want to earn 1% daily. Whereas with Hunt, you can come in with $100, $200, and earn, twice the yield. So I think it's just a no-brainer that we're going to see a lot of traction for this project, and we'll be seeing a lot of growth soon. But everything has to be done, like step by step, and we need to get everything in order before we can really initiate marketing and start attracting those people. Otherwise, we're just going to be overwhelmed. And yeah, there's other games that we're going to be entering. Crabada is just the first one. And yeah, regarding VAS or whatever, or VAS on the Discord, that's pretty much been the main question for us from the beginning is, like you need sustainable revenue if you want to make a project like this. And if your only solution to that is to constantly be attracting new investors and paying out old investors, that's the definition of a Ponzi scheme. And so all these ideas like multi-node and like looking at MCC, I mean, just blatantly fuck them. They're a bunch of scammers, and I feel sorry for people who are throwing money at that. But like the whole idea of multi-print, multi-node, it's going to collapse on itself because eventually there just isn't going to be money coming in, and people are going to see the declining yield, and everyone's going to panic sell at that point. So it's really just a matter of time before those projects collapse. But I think that puts us in a good position because everyone is trying to find the next passive income project. And when we have the highest returns and also the cheapest entry, we're in a good position to compete with them. So I see all those projects imploding, especially, considering the stress that the market is under now. It's going to be really difficult for those people to survive. And yeah, more pools will be released soon for Crabada. We're thinking tomorrow, most likely. There isn't going to be a set schedule that we release them because it honestly is a lot of work to launch these pools. But we're going to try to do it daily if we can. If not, then every other day. But the best way to keep up with it is just going to be checking the announcements. And yeah, the priorities going forward over the next few months. I mean, for the immediate term, we have to refine Hunt. We're working on the reinforcement bot, and we expect that'll be done next week. After that's done, we're going to be thinking about, like the second addition to Hunt that we're working on. Right now, like for the past 2 weeks, I've been absurdly busy trying to calculate a bunch of things for Hunt for this new product that we're going to be releasing. And also like in all these meetings for, variety of things that we're doing with marketing and partnerships. So I've just been completely overwhelmed, but so I feel bad that we've been neglecting the things that we promised. Like the Sub-DAO is something that I want to take action on immediately. So I'm hoping that, hopefully by next week, once we're a little bit less busy, we can start moving onto that and start actually like implementing the Sub-DAO model that we've been talking about. New pools, like I said, they're just going to be done, when we have the capacity to. And then the website, we're going to work on, also as well as soon as we have more time to do it. It's just right now we're completely overwhelmed with improving Hunt. VG, I mentioned earlier that we've talked about a launchpad before. And if you look at our docs on Gitbook, we mentioned launchpads, we mentioned seed rounds. So that's always been part of the vision. And I don't think it's something that'll be difficult to fulfill. The thing is like, to actually enter into discussions with these projects and to get allocations, like you also need some sort of legitimacy or you need connections. And I think for us to do something like a launchpad, we've been here now for 3 months. And I think we're like slowly starting to acquire that legitimacy. And I think that's proven just by the fact, like the sort of people that have been reaching out recently. But as the project grows and people see that like we're genuinely here to stay, I think something like a launchpad won't be difficult at all to implement. In terms of development, it won't take long. The main question regarding launchpads is really just the legitimacy and connections that we have to create. But I think we're getting pretty close to that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a launchpad, in the next few months. And then regarding the pools for CCC and TUS, to do that, we need an oracle because without an oracle, there's not going to be any way to actually accurately track, how much has been invested into the pools. And since the market is crazy right now, where we're seeing like 20% dumps in a day, it would be wise at all for us to launch pools, in an asset that we can't keep track of. So that's why we're doing USDC right now. But definitely in the future, it's part of the plan, but it's not really the biggest priority right now. And yeah, I forgot to talk about so there's the rewards UI. When you hover your mouse over the NFT, it flips over and shows you your rewards. That currently is broken because of the new distribution bot. And so it hasn't been updated to actually like keep track of the new distribution bot. But what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that feature altogether. And I think what we're going to do instead is create a rewards page where it just shows you the total TUS that's sent between the distribution bot and your wallet. And that way it'll be much easier to track. And there shouldn't be any issues with it since it's just looking at the two wallet addresses. And you can do whatever you want with your TUS. You know, you can sell it, put it into CCC, but I'm not really worried about the sell pressure from TUS at all. You know, it's a token that's meant to be sold, so that's what you should be doing with it. Either use it to get your own crabs to breed, or sell it. And I guess another thing to mention too is like what, like people, I think, and I'm not even really too concerned with explaining this. I'm just doing it on the AMA because I expect that anyone listening to this are people who are going to be sticking around for a while anyway. But I personally don't really care if the market gets this or not. I think what's going to end up happening with CCC and Hunt is going to be very similar to Ohm, where, as you know, like it took a couple of months for Ohm to actually pop off, and you know, no one really was discussing it for a long time. But I think that once people begin to understand what this is, you're going to see a lot of projects trying to fork it. And I think that, you know, all the conditions are there for this to become a pretty significant narrative in, you know, on Twitter and in the general crypto space. But what people aren't seeing is that, like, essentially what we're doing is basically crowdsourcing liquidity. And so people can look at it one side, which is the revenue that we're generating, or how the treasury is growing. But the scope goes beyond even that because, like, yes, we're generating a shit ton of revenue off of this, but we're also crowdsourcing the liquidity for us to acquire these assets. And so right now, our total treasury, you'll see, you know, we have $600,000 in stables. But then if you look at the value of all of the assets that we've acquired, like the NFTs, for example, then you'll see that the treasury is actually worth a lot more than that. You know, it's like $2 million. So it's just a matter of like connecting the dots, and not everyone is really capable of doing that because unless it immediately benefits their pocket, they're really not going to bother trying to actually read or, you know, figure out the exact mechanics of the project. But I think that once it takes off and people start like becoming more interested in it, you're going, like, those are the sorts of things that you're going to see people talking about is, you know, like just how clever it is to crowdsource liquidity for these things, to also give users exposure to it. And, you know, I mean, like the idea of a decentralized exchange, for example, you know, took off because of crowdsourced liquidity. And I think that's going to be the same thing with Hunt and Play to Earn Gaming and any other project we adopt to. um, but I think other DAOs, especially, are going to see the benefit of this, and this will probably become, you know, like a critical feature of like how DAOs work in the future. Crypto agent,
Hello.
hey, what's up?
Oh yeah. Hi. Thanks for today again. Loving the transparency, loving the updates, and I'm loving the unique aspect of all that's going on. To be honest, I've been involved in the scene for about 5 years and not seen anything like this really. I'm a big DAO fan as well. I just wanted to know a bit of background, your background really. What's your background and where you've come from? What's seen, because you've clearly got an idea of the finance industry, which I work in the bonds. So I just wanted to understand obviously what your background is, and because I get a sense that you're very confident and motivated in what you're doing, which is an attribute that I'm admirable about with people,
Yeah.
because it gives you conviction in what you're doing. And also the other thing about the project itself is, what's your view on the market at the moment? You mentioned obviously that you're not too concerned about where the market goes in respect of Triple C and Hunt, but I just wanted to get a flavour to see what your thoughts are obviously on what's going on fundamentally, especially because obviously it will have an impact, I suppose, in various elements of the liquidity flows that the project sees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't have any significant background whatsoever. Like I've mentioned, I've been just investing in crypto for a long time, and my connections in the space have all happened pretty much organically and spontaneously. And so the developers of this project, for example, they're working for a pretty significant financial corporation that everyone knows, and they're essentially developing a cross-border payments program for them. And so, they're the ones running this program. So they're not, like amateur, like coders or anything like that. But my connections to them just came from essentially like, I've been on Twitter for a while. I had my own private group, and I mentioned this in the earlier AMAs, but how this idea came about for CCC and the DAO was because we noticed a lot of people were constantly coming in and leaving, and they weren't really invested in like the group's, like long-term interests. And so there were people who would come in because they wanted alpha, and then as soon as like a new trend popped off where they wanted to follow the NFT hype, or they wanted to follow the BSC hype, and so these people would just leave and we'd never hear from them again. And so we were just thinking about how do you solve that, and a DAO was the first idea that I think was obvious. But also we were thinking, how do you actually incentivize these people to continue contributing, to this group, so that everyone has, like a collective interest in its long-term future, but everyone is also actively contributing and being rewarded for their contribution. And so I think in some ways, we've already been successful at that with CCC. And I mean, just like, we're paying all of the delegates for the DAO. We're paying all of our moderators. We're going to be adding this tip feature soon, so that, like if someone contributes something as small as like, they wrote a decent tweet or something, or they made, like a meme that a lot of people like, then people will be able to tip them. And we're going to just keep expanding on that. We've done giveaways as well. For people who have written proposals, we've mentioned that, like we're going to compensate them. If the proposal actually performs well, then, like they'll be compensated for that. And it'll vary for each proposal. The most significant one, I think, was the Crabada proposal. But, as we mentioned, we were going to give Briscoe, his own team, which, like over a year would generate over 6 figures. And that's because his proposal has generated well over 6 figures for us now. So, like that's the type of thing that we want to do, is reward everyone who is participating and helping out the DAO. But yeah, I guess to answer your question regarding my own background, I'm pretty much just self-taught. I've just been trading for a while. I'm not a day trader by any means. I don't care to do that. It's too stressful for me. So for that reason alone, I don't want to do it. And at the point where I'm at now, like I'm just investing for the long term. And so, I'd much rather read about a project, throw some money at it. And I don't really care if it's going to take me months or a year to get a return on it. That's my approach and how I prefer to do it. Because it's just a lot less stressful for me. And then regarding the market now, I'm not really concerned with it. Is like my expectation is that we're just going to see it range for a while, and I don't know if that's going to be 6 months or 12 months. I imagine probably like by end of the year we'll see the market bounce a bit, but I'm not really too concerned by it because just fundamentally the space has changed completely, and the comparisons that people are making to like 2018, when none of this stuff like play to earn gaming, DeFi existed, there was actually like objectively no reason for people to keep money in crypto during that time period. Like your options were pretty much like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum was like the best thing, but Ethereum was nothing comparable to what it is now. So I don't think the comparisons are accurate in any way, and I think like we have to consider that in terms of even considering like how this liquidity is going to stay in the space, because there's just been like thousands of ways that like people have created for people to actually like keep their money in crypto and to actually like utilize it, like.
Yeah, no, I concur 1,000,000% with the observations of the market. It's the dynamics have changed. You go back to 2017 and 18 with the Ethereum run. You get obviously all these ICOs using the platform. It was obvious what was going to happen with the demand with Ethereum, and obviously there was no utility anywhere. But obviously completely different now. And obviously if you're Triple C, obviously you're getting sort of percentage back, obviously just for holding, which I'm happy to, because the long-term vision you guys have got, and the community that you're building is quite impressive. Especially you've been around for around 3 to 4 months, I think. So
Yeah.
But yeah, that's thanks for that. I appreciate sort of the honesty, and the angle of approach. And obviously, you can tell obviously that you understand what you're talking about just by the way you articulate anyway. So I'm on board long term anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, this is another thing that I've been mentioning too, is like I get people who message me, and I think a lot of people assume that I'm the one running the things with the DAO, and I mean, my goal is for that to not be the case at all. And so people will message me with a link to a new project, and I'm so busy these days that I don't have time to read those things. And so pretty much what I'm learning at this point is whatever is recommended to me from Murph, from Briscoe, from Bskin, and they'll send me a proposal or they'll tell me about a new project that is about to release, and then I'll read that. But they're the ones that are entirely responsible for research at this point, and I want to keep it that way. And if I'm less busy, a couple months from now, then I'll start to engage that as well. But just because of how things are right now, that's who people should be contacting. And especially if they want to have a more active role in the DAO, all of those people contact me, and they'll say like, hey, I've been working with this person for a few weeks. They're very intelligent, they're doing great research, and they'll tell me that they want to bring them on as an analyst, and we'll pay them to do that. So to even, like if you're looking for an active role in CCC, those are the people to be talking to. They're the ones who are going to be managing the funds for the most part, and they're also the ones who are going to be researching projects. So everyone should be, if anything, if they want advice on what to invest in or they want to discuss a new project, contact those three. And then also, also a random guy in the Discord.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff, to be honest. I like the fact that you're presenting opportunity as well, on that basis, and you're building a hierarchy of governance as well as autonomy,
right?
And the way that companies are built. So I'm impressed with that. Just while I got you on here, there is a game that you may want to just review, is Holy Grail, which is on the Harmony blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they have an extensive list of play to earn games that they're looking at. They mentioned that they have a proposal coming up on Treasure. I mean, they've already written them for Alice, for Pegaxi. There's a lot of stuff that they're looking at. So, I mean, like, these are the kinds of things that I like to see too, because that was our vision, was for people to be having these discussions and figuring out ways for them to earn money, both with the DAO, like from the revenue and the buybacks that we're generating, but also just from all the discussions and the networking that they'll be doing, like within the DAO itself. So that's why I've been saying, I think we've been doing a pretty good job at it. I think for anyone who's active, plenty of people say that like one of the best things about the Discord is just how much they've been learning about new projects. So I think we've been pretty successful in that regard.
Yeah, it's a good start. I'm liking the growth, evolution, and onwards and upwards. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, I also think we're in a good position being on Avix because I don't know if people recognize this, but there are like DFK, for example, is going to Avix, and DFK is one of like the largest play to earn games on the market right now. But like all these projects are building their own subnets, Crabada, DFK. I can't disclose other projects that are coming to Avix, but there will be some pretty big news in the near future. And Avix is trying to take on gaming, and I think become like the preferred chain for play to earn gaming, essentially. So I think the fact that we built on Avix has already put us in a good position to enter that market, just because of all the games we'll see launching on it, and the new ones entering soon.
Yes, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I just have a question. Are we getting any land? Are you buying any land for the metaverse?
That's part of the plan, but right now we don't have anything in mind. I mean, I know that World released, and we've been there's been plenty of discussions regarding World.
Okay.
But so I guess it's complicated by a couple things. We're focused on building our treasury, and I mentioned that we want to have at least 50% stables before we start making any other significant investments. But we're getting pretty close to fulfilling that goal. So in total, with all our NFTs, our treasury is at 2 million, and then with just in stables, we're at 600,000. And so I don't think it'll be, at most maybe like 2 weeks before, we meet that goal and we can start entering other projects. So we're not very far from that at all.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Bizlet? Your microphone is muted if you want to speak.
All right, yeah, I have questions concerning like Crabada for Hunt. As how long do you think the runway will be in terms of viability of yield, and if Crab starts to like die off, is there a way that you can sell the Crab teams and like like the NFTs, you can like liquidate it and give back to its holders some of the money that you spend in? Is that any type of plan?
Users can sell their NFTs on Kalau already. We're not going to liquidate the NFTs and then distribute that to holders because our top priority is the treasury. So if users want to sell their own NFTs, they can do that. But if we were to ever liquidate the NFTs in the future, that money is going to go to the CCC treasury. Sorry, I forgot the other part of your question.
Just like the runway for
the
Crab.
runway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long do you have any kind of time estimates? I mean, because obviously games go out of style. It's not going to be popular forever. So
Yeah, no, of course. I've mentioned in the Discord a couple times that the way I see the play to earn gaming market, I don't think is going to be any different from traditional gaming. And so people have kind of been criticizing play to earn gaming because they're saying, well, this project may not be here for a year. But I'm also thinking most video games are not here after a year. I mean, even Call of Duty, you probably play for 4 months, 6 months, and then you get rid of it and move on to the next thing. So I think that's just the nature of gaming. Even if it is fun, people are going to get bored. They're going to move on to something else. This may actually have a longer runway than that because people are earning money from it. So that's one significant incentive to stay, even if the game isn't that fun. But regarding the runway for Crabada specifically, it's complicated and it's hard to say. But to make a simple example, I guess, and I mentioned this in the Discord as well. So the runway, for example, being, like 62 and a half days for a user to get a return on their investment. But the money that we're throwing into Crabada on a daily basis is much higher than the total, like the total sell pressure that all those users would have after over 62 and a half days. Aside from that, it's not just money coming in, from one side and then money coming out the other side. The Crabada economy is more complicated than that because not only do you have to, you're spending money to acquire the NFT, but then there's multiple other strategies that people are pursuing to compound their earnings, to breed, to rent crabs. And so that's why I'm saying it's difficult to calculate, is because it's not, like a simple, like, like 1, 2, 3, like step process where the money comes in and then the user just sells their rewards. There's a lot of other actions in between that the user is taking, which is burning TUS. So that's why we've seen that like TUS has been deflationary several times since Crabada released, because people are actually using these features of their economy to utilize their TUS and burn it. And so that's why you see TUS is deflationary some days or weeks, for example. So I think that's a huge mistake people are making, assuming that it's just purely inflationary and it's going to go to zero. I think inflation for play to earn games is necessary, because if not for inflation, then it just becomes too expensive, and then obviously no one is going to buy them at that point. Um, so I think inflation is just going to end up being like an inherent feature of these games. Um, but how that's managed is really like up to the teams. And I think for a lot of games, even if they don't have perfect tokenomics, like Pegaxi is one example, I think there's pretty significant issues with their tokenomics. But the teams have mentioned that they plan on implementing features to reduce the inflation and maintain the supply. I think Crabada right now, as far as play to earn gaming goes, though, has one of the best models out there, just because they've created numerous syncs for TUS, with renting and breeding, and even for CRA. So
Yeah, I understand. So right, I think it will do just like Axie or anything else. It'll have a euphoria period, and that's probably where you want to sell your tusks, and then
Yeah.
go down. So that's kind of
Yeah. But
yeah.
I mean,
I can see what you're saying.
yeah, even Axie, just like Axie had just purely inflationary tokenomics, and I think last week or 2 weeks ago, they they put out a new update that they're reducing emissions finally, even though this issue has been there for like over 9 months at this point. But even with the inflation, Axie has continued for over a year at this point. So, I mean, that's something to consider is like Crabada has, like much better tokenomics than Axie. And I think Crabada has only been around 4 months at this point, 3, 4 months. And it's only has like 4,000 players or something. So it's still really early for Crabada. I don't think we've hit that, like the peak, of euphoria just yet.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So, since there's no other questions, I'll just wrap up and talk about, what we covered in the AMA basically. But as I mentioned, the distribution has been fixed. We're now working on the reinforcement bot. We've already been testing it. And from what the developers told me, they saw a 40% increase in the rewards just from the testing. And that was, it had bugs, of course. So they fixed a few of those bugs already. But we've already seen an increase in the yield from the reinforcement bot. And as soon as that's implemented, we'll be implementing that for every single pool. And all the new pools, as mentioned as well, they're all going to be upgraded. And the point of upgrading them is going to be to maximize the miners' revenge, and in turn maximize the win rate for the teams. So, all the future pools are going to be getting the maximum amount of yield possible, and then we'll be upgrading the older pools so that eventually they're providing the same returns as the new pools. Aside from that, as I mentioned, we were delayed a lot because of these unexpected issues with the distribution. um, but our goal is still to implement Sub-DAOs. Murr and Briscoe have already published a proposal regarding the treasury allocation. We're going to be creating a multi-sig that's managed by each of the Sub-DAOs, and then they'll be receiving funds, which they can then invest in new projects at their own discretion. But of course, they will also be writing proposals for the DAO. Um, and then regarding marketing, we decided to take a step back. So we've already negotiated deals with influencers, with an agency, but we told them to put it off until March because of the issues we had with Hunt. So we wanted to refine all these things, make sure everything is working perfectly, and that we can actually increase the pool capacity. Because right now, for example, we can only sustain something like $400,000 to $450,000. And if we're going to do marketing and suddenly we get an insane amount of demand for, a million or 1.5 million on a daily basis, then we're not going to be able to meet that demand. So it would pretty much just be a waste of the marketing funds. So once that's all ready, then we'll be ready to begin. But, we already have the deals in place. We've already had the conversations. It's just a matter of us telling them when to begin at this point. And then, as I mentioned as well, there's been a lot more interest from other projects, from VC firms. I've been asked to speak on a podcast. A YouTube influencer with over 100,000 followers contacted us. Also, CoinKid, which I think is a research group. They also wrote an article regarding CCC, and we got a pretty decent rating. They said that they would have boosted our rating to a 5 if we had an audit and if we were on other chains, which, I mean, those are pretty minor things. So I consider it a pretty good review. But yeah, there's a lot of interest, from good people too, not just from degen projects. I have been contacted by degen projects, but I've been ignoring them for the most part, just because what we're offering is better, and I don't see that really doing much for us long term to attract those sorts of people. So we're just going to stick to our original vision, which is going to be basically creating a DAO that everyone can be part of, that they can learn from, where they'll be compensated for their contribution, and also generating sustainable revenue that we can return to holders, which we're going to do with Hunt. We already doubled the treasury. You know, we're already making hundreds of thousands per month, which will soon become millions of dollars per month, comparable to the top DeFi protocols, basically. And for a DAO to be doing that, I don't see how that narrative doesn't blow up on Twitter or in crypto in general. So I think, you know, we're in a good place. It's just a matter of, you know, we have to keep building, but we're almost there at this point, is the way I see it. You know, we're pretty close to success. And then the other features that I mentioned too is we talked to we're going to be essentially hiring advisors to help us with the Launchpad. And it's not to build the Launchpad, it's to actually help us source deals and, you know, develop these partnerships with other projects. I don't think the Launchpad idea is that complicated, so that's something we're going to try and do in the near future. You know, I would say probably the next like 2-3 months we can get something like that rolling. You know, we're going to expand Hunt to other projects. And then other idea that I mentioned is, you know, we want to start doing these podcast series with other legitimate projects in play to earn gaming and DeFi. There's a lot of exciting stuff releasing soon, like Yeti Finance. There's Echidna. And, you know, having discussions with them, I think would be great for everyone involved because it brings exposure to both of our projects, but it's also an opportunity for everyone to learn. So those are all the things that we covered today. You know, I'm really excited for what's coming, and yeah, I'll see you guys at the next AMA.